Good morning, everybody. How are we all feeling today? So today's talk is looking at ways we can reduce overwhelm. I think it's something I'm hearing quite a lot at the moment, that people are tired, they're working harder than ever, feeling a bit overwhelmed, exhausted. And so it feels really useful to think about what are the things that we could potentially outsource in our business or in our lives to actually free up a bit of time, bit of energy, a bit of headspace, so we don't feel like we're running around like headless chickens doing all the things all the time. Um, but to be able to do that without it having a negative impact in our work. And I know for myself, there's been a temptation in the past, or like my own fears around money, to feel like if I do all the things myself, then I'll earn more because I'm not paying anybody else to do stuff for me. It can be a bit scary to feel like we make that commitment to invest in our business, to invest in ourselves, and particularly things that I know I'm capable of. There's always been that resistance about, well, why would I pay someone to do something I can do perfectly well myself? But it's a false economy. And over recent years, I've been really embracing taking on some extra help, outsourcing the things that I don't like doing, because actually we need to give ourselves the time and space to be visionary and strategic and to really plan our business on a big scale. And when we're kind of caught in the nitty-gritty of everyday stuff all the time, there isn't that space for that bigger vision to set a goal and plan around it and have that space to grow. So when we think about, well, I find it useful to think about a larger business, because when it's just us, if you're self-employed, it's just you in your business and you're kind of every department, the edges get very blurry about what's you, what's your business, what are different areas. And so if I think of a larger business and you think of all the departments in there, things can get a little bit clearer. So, if you imagine, for example, say a big studio, you've got your reception, your front of house, they're dealing with inquiries, they meet and greet people as they come and go. They may be taking some bookings, some payments, checking up people's membership passes, like all of those kind of things. So you've got that front of house. You probably in the background have somebody who's really focusing on accounts. So the front of house might take the payments, but they're not doing the bookkeeping. They're not doing the monthly profit and loss, that more financial overview. So there's a whole area of accounts, which is separate from just initially taking payments, because you also have to look at your expenses as well. Then obviously you have your teachers. So they're delivering the classes. There's marketing and sales. So again, the front of house might actually take payment, but they're not necessarily the sales team. That's part of marketing. That's the outreach into your community, into social media. It's the spreading the message of what it is that you are offering, what you stand for, the kind of people that you work with, all of that side of things. So there's a whole lot of marketing which can come in lots of different ways. We often think about it as social media, but it also includes things like your website, like newsletters, like making connections with other local businesses, maybe putting leaflets and posters in local cafes. Like, there's many things that we can do as part of marketing. Then often in a bigger company, you might need an IT department, making sure all the equipment is working. And again, I'd say there's quite a few yoga teachers who may be expert in this area. It's certainly not my happy place particularly. Then you would have cleaners and building maintenance as well, when you got to think of the overall running of the physical space as well. And then, of course, you have the management or the CEO, like the people who are overseeing the business as a whole. And this is very much our role when we're self-employed. Like, we need to be able to be the CEO of our business, to take that higher level view of the whole thing, to have the time to assess and investigate what's working, what's not working, to do a bit of analysis, you know, to maybe go through all the figures and look at what classes are working, what classes not so much, feedback from people. So you see, there's all these different departments. And if you imagine on a larger scale, you know, a big studio, or maybe there's a company that has 2 or 3 studios, if the CEO was also the cleaner and the front of house and teaching and IT, you can see how that business would probably fail, or it certainly wouldn't grow, because you can't have one person doing all of those things and there being the quality of service and the ability to step back and plan and grow and be strategic. So we need to break that down a little bit in our own business. So what I find is useful is to think about maybe all these areas. So we might not have our own physical studio. I know a lot of teachers have a space maybe at home for small group classes or one-to-ones, or they may be working in other people's studios. But very often we still have an equivalent of front of house, which may be, you know, taking phone calls from people who are inquiring about classes. We need some way of people making bookings, making payments. So when we think about all these different departments, as it were, within that, I find it really helpful to think about what are the things that only we can do that we couldn't give to somebody else to do, and what are the things that potentially we could have someone step in and do that for us, or potentially to automate, which I see as another sort of outsourcing, that if you're giving a job or a task to some technology, that can be useful as well. So for example, with the front of house, and I know quite a few people have this already, but it can be really useful to look at booking software that can act a bit like your reception, in that people could go onto your website, they can see your schedule, they could book themselves on, buy a class pass. So there are systems available. There's lots of different ones. So I personally use Acuity, but I know there's lots of other systems out there. And so this means then that you don't have to be the person manually booking people into their classes, keeping track of their class pass, their payments, that when you have these things that are online and people set up an account, then if there was an inquiry, quite often someone could check themselves, but if there was then an issue, then you're just dealing with the odd issue that comes up that you might still need to deal with, but that day-to-day managing bookings becomes much easier. The thing that maybe you would need to do individually is to have that initial conversation with a new student, particularly if it's somebody with cancer, that you might want to have a chat with them, make sure that they book themselves into the right class, the one that's most suitable for them, or maybe just to check that it's suitable at all for them to come and have classes with you. So there are some things that you want to have the time to do, but then there's other things that you can automate. Again, with accounts, you can, with some of your booking software, have a certain amount of things that are recorded automatically for you, and you can then print off a report if you want to then do your own bookkeeping. I really recommend having an accountant to do your end of year accounts. I know a lot of people still do their self-assessment themselves. If you're very confident and comfortable doing that, it's great. But again, it's worth looking at how much do you love doing that and how much time does it take? So for me, there's great peace of mind in having an accountant file my end of year accounts. I know they're done properly. But also she's the person who keeps up to date with all the budgets and the changes in the thresholds and the allowances you're allowed and what you can claim as an expense and what you can't. And, you know, sometimes there's more than one way of claiming an expense, particularly if it's a large one, like buying a new laptop. So there's different ways of doing things. So again, having someone whose area of expertise is that, to me, that saves me time and energy, and it also frees up a lot of stress and anxiety about, you know, whether it's I've done it correctly, is it on time? You know, there are those things that just make life a little easier. So I do my own bookkeeping, I keep my spreadsheets, but she puts it all together as proper final accounts. And I generally think it's a worthwhile investment because a good accountant will save you money, I believe, in the long run, because they can give you some advice that should save you more than it costs to pay them to do your accounts once a year. So the teaching side of things, as a small independent teacher, generally this is going to be you. This is going to be the thing that you're not outsourcing. However, I would say for all of us, it's really helpful to have a cover teacher, because we do want to create a business that doesn't fall apart if we're sick, if we need to take a holiday. This is part of what the outsourcing is for, is that we don't have to carry all the things all the time, that there are some systems that can keep ticking over even when we're not physically present, so that we can create something that's a bit more sustainable, because we all need to take time off. We all need a break. We all occasionally get a bit run down or unwell. So I would really recommend having a cover teacher. You may have a colleague where you can agree to cover for each other. That can be a super useful thing to have. Thinking about marketing and sales, I think for us, the vision needs to come from us. Like, we need to know, what is our message? What do we stand for? What is the sort of yoga that we want to share? Who is it we want to work with? So we need to be clear on our message, but we don't need to be the person necessarily who's doing all the posts. So for example, I create my Canva posts, so my images, and I write my blurb, and then I have my VA schedule those posts for me. So my social media scheduling, I have somebody else do. I don't enjoy it, I have to say. And there are some things that need to be done on a particular day and time that are not necessarily easy to schedule. So there are things that she does for me so that those things happen regardless, and it frees up a bit of time and energy for me to focus on other things, like trying to bring in more business through building relationships with other people. So going and having a meeting with someone and developing a working relationship with them, where maybe, you know, we might cross-refer to each other or help promote each other's businesses. That's something that I need to do in person, but someone else can schedule my Instagram posts. I don't have to do that. I've already written them, but someone else can do that scheduling for me. And having someone to collaborate with on that also means that it happens more. Left to my own devices, because I don't love social media, you know, I can not be very consistent with it. But with my VA, we have a meeting, we plan the month ahead, and she say, okay, what do you want in this week? So she does 2 posts a week for me. They're decided in advance, so it helps, gives me clarity, and it helps me plan. There's some accountability. And so that makes sure that it happens. And again, it frees up my time to do things that I need to do, so that I can help grow the business more. So at the moment, for example, I'm writing a book. That takes time. So I need to free up other things so that I've got some writing time. So looking at the things that I don't have to do, and particularly things I don't like doing, it's so much more efficient. And again, because she does quite a lot of the kind of technical based stuff, that's her expertise, and she's so much quicker than me. So in a way, it frees up 2 or 3 times what I'm employing her for, if that makes sense. So she does 10 hours a month for me. But if I was to do those jobs, it would probably take me 20 or 30 hours. So it's freeing up so much more time, because she's way quicker than me, because this is what she's good at. So again, you know, you can look at these ongoing things that you might want to outsource, but you might have some sort of one-off bigger projects, such as overhauling your website or setting up a new website. And again, it's worth contemplating if it's genuinely saving to do it yourself. If you're quite skilled at this and you love doing it and you can get it done quite quickly, by all means, make your own website. But I see quite a few people get really stuck with it, or they might hit a technical block, or they don't quite know how to do something. And so it just slides back down the to-do list and they never really finish it or launch it. So these sorts of things, then I would really recommend outsourcing. It's worth that investment to get it up and running, because a website's a really important way for people to find you. And just as a side note, the website you own. Your social media accounts, you don't really. You could be shut down at any point. You can lose your account. You know, there are people who, for whatever reason, have lost their social media accounts and their following. So actually having a website, you own that. You own the content. You've bought the domain name. You know, unless you're seriously breaking laws, you can't lose your website in the same way. So I think it's really worth having one, even if it's a simple 1-page site. And the same with your mailing list. Social media followers you don't own them. They're just following an account, and that could go. You know, other people, they've had their accounts hacked and they've lost their accounts that way. So I would really recommend having a website and a mailing list, just as a side note. But maintaining those things, again, you might want to have somebody who's got expertise in that area that can set up a website for you, you know, within a week. It's a one-off investment, so you can budget for that as a one-off purchase rather than having ongoing outgoings. And this can make a big difference to your business overall, to have a really well-functioning website that if you're integrating a booking system and payment systems on there, like this becomes your front of house. So that could be something that's really worth outsourcing. For me, I set up my website myself, but again, I'm using my VA to, there's developments there, and I know that I can create more on my website, but I need my time for other things. So I'm developing a couple of new pages that she's building for me. She does my landing pages. And again, this is something that I got stuck on because it was a technical thing that I didn't really know how to do, was integrating my my mailing list, so using MailerLite with my website, have a landing page for my freebie. And again, I think it's a really good idea that everybody has a little free offering to, as a way of people getting to know you and see if they want to work with you. It's a way of building your mailing list. So again, having all of this set up and automated is a great bit of outsourcing, because then it runs whether you're there or not. So maybe a more old-fashioned way of doing it is you say, perhaps on your website, oh, I have a free thing. Somebody emails you, and then you reply in person to that email and maybe attach the free thing, and then you manually add their details to your mailing list. With the landing page, all of that's automated. So there's some work to set it up. There's some work in writing your emails in advance. But once it's done, it's done. And so with mine, people will say, yes, please, I'd like the freebie. And then automatically an email is sent out with the access to get the free video, and they're automatically added into my mailing list with a tag that said they had the freebie. So there's a lot of processes there that I might have done manually before, you know, cutting and pasting people, you know, manually adding tags of like where they've come from. And this way, you know, it's all automated, and whether it's 2 a.m. or I'm on holiday, it will happen regardless. So there are these things that start ticking over whether you're present or not. And the more things we have like that, the more we can just step back a bit and breathe and get back to this management CEO part of our business, which is the thing that we need to do. That's the bit you don't want to outsource, is somebody else, you know, creating the vision. And particularly when we're self-employed, it has to be aligned with who we are as people, and also aligned with everything else in our life. So really, that's the thing that only we can do. And we need a bit of time and energy and headspace to really feel into, where do I want to be this time next year, or in 3 or 5 years' time? How do I want my teaching to develop? You know, and there might be bigger projects that you'd like to do that if we don't make some space for, they might end up not ever happening. For example, you might have had an idea of creating a video library that you can use as a resource to bring in more income, that they're nice additional bonuses that you could add on to packages. Like there's lots that you could do with a video library. But maybe there's something that's stopping you doing that. And it might be the IT side of things. You're not sure how to record a decent quality video, and then where does it get stored? How do people access it? How do you put it on your website? How do you make it a paid for thing? Like those are quite technical things. The teaching, you could stand in front of a camera and create some wonderful content, but all the stuff around it might be the things that are blocks for you. And that's where I think it's really worth outsourcing and investing in some help, that maybe you hire somebody to help actually be the camera person, block out a day or two, batch a whole load of content, get it done. It's an investment, but trying to squeeze these things in around all the other bits that you're doing and doing it entirely yourself without any feedback in the moment can be really time consuming and difficult. Whereas if you have someone in the room with you who can see the lighting, can see the framing, you have this two-way conversation, they bring energy into the room. So that time where you just think, oh, I'm losing heart a bit, you've got someone to bounce off, to stop and have a cup of tea with. Sometimes that bit of investment means then that you create something that's then really useful for your business. So look at areas in your business where maybe you are feeling a little bit stuck, or if you go back through your notes, or if you take them or a journal and think, oh yeah, I was going to do this thing. I was going to create a package. I was going to create an ebook. I was going to create all these resources, or whatever it is. If there's a project that you thought was a fantastic idea and you haven't got round to it yet, that could be a real little flag there to say you need some help. And if you still think it's a good idea to create that for your business and you haven't done it, then look for help. And I think it's worth the investment in getting something done to a quality that you're happy with and actually launching it and making it live. Because while it's an idea in your head, nobody's benefiting. All this amazing stuff that that you could create, nobody's getting to share that with you because it doesn't exist yet. So it's not only about thinking about income streams, although that is important for us to be a sustainable business, but it's also about putting your stuff out into the world so other people can benefit. There's no point in having all our skills and knowledge just contained in our head and we're not sharing it with anybody. We want people to benefit from yoga, to benefit from all the skills that we have. So these things need to come into fruition. So that would be another point, is if you're stuck somewhere, if you have a project in mind that you haven't done, and so whether it's creating a product, whether it's overhauling your website and getting a proper booking system on there, if there's places where you're stuck, then outsource, get some help in and get these things moving. And in the long run, it's going to pay for itself, because these are things that are going to help your business develop, be more efficient. If you can take payments more easily, then you may get more students coming to your classes. If you've made a product that people can pay for and do in their own time, it's going to bring you some passive income. So we might need some help to make those things come to life, because we can't be every department. And if we are also wanting to do some of these kind of one-off projects, again, we need time and space to do that. So if our week is packed with doing all the jobs in every department in the business, when are you going to be able to block out a couple of days to create, a great new product, or to develop a course, or to do these things? If we've got bigger projects and goals for years to come, they don't sort of magically evolve over time, as I have discovered. You have to actually carve out time and get some help to make those things become real. And we can only carve out time if we've started to outsource or automate some of the day-to-day running of our business, so that we've got that space to be creative. And I think, as a final point, looking down my list of departments, so most studios will have cleaners, and maybe somebody can do a bit of building maintenance. For us, I really recommend having that in your own home. I think for most teachers that I talk to are self-employed, they're a one-person business, and they do most of their non-teaching work at home. And of course, when we're at home, I'm just looking around my space now, we're often distracted by things that need doing. I personally like to have a kind of clean and tidy space to do my admin in. It helps my headspace as well. And I just find when things are really messy, it affects the way that I think and the way that I work. So it's very easy then to get distracted and lose time in straightening out our environment, or we realize that, there's some laundry needs doing, or that needs tidying. So I really recommend having a cleaner at home. And again, she's way more efficient than me. And it doesn't have to be a huge outlay. And in terms of hiring help, I would say a cleaner is a really good investment, because the hourly rate is not as high as perhaps hiring a graphic designer to do some stuff for you. Like, their hourly rate is going to be different. So, if you're thinking about managing your finances and your energy, for me, it's been the best investment to have a cleaner. Of course, I'm perfectly capable of doing it, but the amount of time it takes detracts from the time that I need to put into my business. So having somebody, and it's only once a fortnight, so it doesn't have to be like hours and hours every week, but it makes a huge difference to my quality of life, and it frees up so much time and energy that I can put that into growing my business, knowing that, tomorrow there's going to be a deep clean in the kitchen and the bathroom. So it saves my time and energy that way, and stops things building up to that sense of overwhelm. I'm hearing quite a lot of people are struggling with that at the moment. And again, when we think of how many different tasks there are in our lives and in our business, that alone can start leading to overwhelm when we're thinking about all the things that need doing at home, from cleaning and laundry, some household maintenance, thinking about meals and food and keeping track of all of that. If we have children, is thinking about all the things that they need and their school trips and filling forms and homework and booking them into the dentist and, all of those things that need doing. And then we've got everything within our business, and thinking of, being a yoga teacher is not one job. Often we have 10 jobs within that because we're trying to be not just a teacher. There's hardly anyone I know who all they do as a yoga teacher is rock up and teach a class. you know Very often they are doing marketing and accounts and dealing with their own IT, and there's all these other things that need doing. We also need to do our ongoing CPD, we need to keep our first aid up to date, we need to do a bit of research and development, there's our own practice. So there's so many things that overwhelm is so easy that give yourself permission to get help where you can. It's not cheating. Trying to grow a business on your own is really difficult because there are so many jobs within it. So if there are things that you can automate, through scheduling software for social media posts, through automated sign up on your website, through booking software, payment software. It takes a bit of time to set up, but then once it's running, it's easy. And again, looking at areas where you might be a little bit stuck. So things that maybe take you a very long time to do that someone else could do quickly, or whether you have a project that you want to create and you feel stuck within that, then looking at getting some professional help, outsourcing some things will mean that you actually make those steps, that you create the content that you want, that you can scale your business a little bit more, and you start doing more of the things that you love and less of the things that really drain you and that you find stressful and tiring. For somebody else, that will be the thing that they get really excited about because we're all different. So knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, and getting some help in is what's going to really help you enjoy your business a lot more, free up some time and energy and headspace, and actually move forward and grow and develop. And hopefully that's just going to bring you much more job and life satisfaction. So I hope that's given you some ideas of things that's going to make life easier for you. Laura, thank you for being live here with me today. Lovely to see you. And for people watching on catch up, if there's any aha moments or it's given you that little light bulb, yes, I need to hire someone or do this or make certain changes, be really lovely to hear about those in the comments below. So wishing you a lovely week, and I'll see you next time. Take care.